She hasn't, no. She's more of a soft influencing.
I will deal with her. Everyone in that room understood exactly what those 4 words meant. Not because William raised his voice. Not because he made any dramatic declaration. But because quiet fury from a man who has been patient for 30 years lands differently than shouting. It lands like a verdict. September 2022. A quiet room. A desk covered in documents. And a man who had been waiting for this moment longer than most people knew. When Prince William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, the world watched the formal handover and saw what they were supposed to see. A ceremonial transfer. A title passing from father to son. Something ancient and procedural and almost boring in its formality. That is what the cameras showed. That is what the headlines said. What happened behind that door was something else entirely. The Duchy of Cornwall is not a decoration. It is not a symbolic honor handed down through generations to make royals feel important. It is a machine. A living, breathing financial machine worth over $1 billion, generating millions every single year, controlling a vast network of properties stretching across Cornwall, Wales, and the Isles of Scilly. It funds the heir to the throne. It employs hundreds of people. It holds contracts, payrolls, budgets, and arrangements that have been quietly running for decades without anyone from the outside world asking too many questions. The moment Charles became king, all of it transferred to William's hands. The properties, the income, the contracts, the payroll. William went through that payroll the way a man goes through a house he has just inherited and is seeing clearly for the first time. Methodically. Carefully. With the particular attention of someone who already suspects what they're going to find.
This has been very inspiring, a lot of incredible finalists, a lot of optimism and action and really hope. You've been in the 5 years, this is a 10-year action project. I think you've sorted through thousands and thousands of finalists, you've got hundreds of partners, and apparently 75 actual solutions. What have these tangible efforts done, and are you satisfied with the progress so far midway?
And then he found it. One name. Sitting right there on the page. Collecting payments year after year after year as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As if no one would ever look closely enough to ask how it got there in the first place. Annabelle Elliot. Camilla's youngest sister. William looked up from that document. He turned to his staff. And he said, very quietly, just 4 words. Hi viewers, I want to ask you something personal before we go any further. Did you ever watch someone you loved get hurt and feel completely powerless to do anything about it? To the outside world, Annabelle Elliot was entirely respectable. She was polished. She was connected. She was the kind of woman who appeared in the royal box at Wimbledon and smiled warmly at BBC cameras and sat beside senior members of the family as if she had always belonged there. In 2014, a major British newspaper ranked her the 5th most influential female interior designer in the entire country. 5th. In the whole country. She had designed spaces inside duchy properties across Cornwall, Wales, and the Isles of Scilly. She had been woven so deeply into the fabric of palace life that most people had completely stopped questioning how she got there. William never stopped questioning it. Because William knew exactly how Annabelle Elliot ended up on that payroll. He knew what she had done to earn it. He knew what she had looked away from. He knew what she had actively helped to happen. And he knew that the contract she had been handed in 2005, right after Charles married Camilla, was not a reward for her talent. It was a reward for her loyalty. Not to the crown. To her sister. The last numbers visible before William took control told a partial story. Nearly £20,000 in fees. Over £12,000 in furniture purchases. But those were only the final visible figures. The full total across nearly 2 decades was never fully disclosed. Someone had made certain of that. The money was not what tightened William's jaw, though. It was what that money represented. It was the fact that the institution he was now responsible for had been quietly paying a woman who had helped cover one of the most devastating betrayals his family had ever experienced. Year after year.
Christian, I think it's days like today that there's a chance for a bit of a reflection as to, I can't quite believe we are at the halfway mark of the 10-year plan of the decade of change that Earthshot was there for. I'm so pleased and impressed by what the Earthshot's achieved, but most of all by the finalists, the winners, and all the Earthshot community that are out here. They've risen to the challenge.
Invoice after invoice. As if what she had done simply did not matter. As if history had no cost. The 2024 Duchy of Cornwall annual report came out, and where Annabelle Elliot's name had appeared for nearly 20 years, there was now a single word. Nothing. No press release. No gracious farewell. No acknowledgement of 2 decades of service. Palace sources tried to soften it afterward, telling the press it was no reflection on the quality of her work. But that statement was for public consumption. William's reasons had nothing to do with the quality of her interior design. It was 3 things moving together at exactly the same moment. It was his vision for a monarchy that no longer handed out paychecks based on who you were connected to. It was a direct message to every person inside Camilla's circle that the protection they had enjoyed under Charles was finished. Done. Non-negotiable. And it was personal. Bone-deep personal. Because to understand why William did not hesitate, why there was no internal debate, no sleepless night, no moment of second-guessing, you have to understand what Annabelle Elliot actually did. Not what she designed. Not what she decorated. What she did during the years when 2 people were conducting an affair that was quietly pulling Diana apart at the seams. Annabelle Elliot did not simply turn away and pretend not to notice. That would have been bad enough. What she did was far more deliberate than that. She opened her home. Her country house in Dorset became one of the locations Charles and Camilla used for their secret meetings during the affair years. While Diana was at home raising 2 small boys and fighting to hold herself together, Charles was making his way quietly to Annabelle's house. And Annabelle was not standing at the door looking uncomfortable about it. She was part of it. There was one particular evening during those years. Charles arrived furious. Something had happened, something involving Diana, and he had brought every ounce of that anger straight through Annabelle's front door. He was difficult. He was snapping at people. Even Camilla could not reach him. And in that moment, Annabelle Elliot did not step back. She stepped forward. She grabbed her sister by the shoulders. She looked her directly in the eyes. And she said it plainly. Diana doesn't even come close to you. Go calm him. Then she pushed Camilla toward the bedroom door and closed it behind her.
This, man attacked me, and I did fight back, and I got off. I remember getting off the train and my mother looking at me and saying, you know, why is your hair standing on end, and why is the button missing from your coat? And
oh gosh, so it was physical.
I'd been attacked, but I remember anger, and I was so furious about it.
That was the woman William had been paying for 20 years. That was the woman sitting in the royal box at Wimbledon. That was the woman smiling into BBC cameras in 2023, still on his payroll, calling Camilla completely loyal. Saying it with warmth. Saying it with a straight face. Saying it as if loyalty were the word that belonged anywhere near what had been done to his mother. Something settled inside William when he saw that interview. Something that had already been decided became absolutely certain. And when the 2024 annual report came out with that single word where her name used to be, it was not the end of the story. It was the opening move. There was a house in Dorset that most people never heard of. A private country home. Quiet roads leading up to it. Trees. Space. The kind of place designed to keep the outside world exactly where it belonged, outside. From the road, you would never have known what was happening inside it. You would never have guessed what that house was being used for. What arrangements had been made within those walls. What conversations had taken place in those rooms. And what a woman named Annabelle Elliot had chosen to become inside them. Because Annabelle Elliot's home in Dorset was not simply a gathering place for old friends. It was something far more deliberate than that. During the years when Charles and Camilla were conducting their affair, that house became one of their primary meeting locations. A safe house. A place where the rules that applied everywhere else simply did not apply. Where a future king could arrive unannounced and leave without anyone saying a word about it. Diana was not there. Diana was never there. Diana was at home. With her boys. Trying to hold herself together while the man she had married continued to disappear into a world she was never invited into. Think about what that means for a moment. Really sit with it. While Diana was raising William and Harry, fighting through the darkest period of her life, telling herself that the marriage could be saved, that she was imagining things, that she was being too sensitive, too emotional, too much. Charles was quietly making his way to her sister-in-law's house in the Dorset countryside. And the woman who owned that house was not standing at the door with any visible conflict about it. Annabelle Elliot knew exactly what her home was being used for. She knew exactly who was walking through her front door and why. She knew what was happening inside her walls, and she made a choice. Not once. Not reluctantly. Repeatedly. Over years. But there was one evening in particular. One evening that tells you everything you need to know about who Annabelle Elliot really was beneath the polished exterior and the Wimbledon appearances and the warm BBC smile. Charles arrived that night in a state nobody could reach. Something involving Diana had set him off, and he had carried every bit of that anger straight through the front door with him. He was difficult. He was distant. He was the kind of furious that fills a room without a single word being raised. People around him were walking carefully. Even Camilla, who knew him better than almost anyone, could not get through to him. And then Annabelle moved. She did not step back. She did not give him space or suggest that perhaps the evening was not a good time. She walked directly to her sister. She put her hands on Camilla's shoulders. She looked her in the eyes. And she said it simply, without hesitation, without a trace of doubt. Diana doesn't even come close to you. Go calm him. Then she turned Camilla toward the bedroom door. And she closed it behind her. Her hands. Her bedroom. Her decision. That was not a woman caught in an uncomfortable situation. That was a woman making a deliberate choice about whose side she was on and what she was willing to do to help. She did not simply tolerate what was happening in her home. She actively managed it. She coached it. She pushed it through the door with her own two hands and then went back to the rest of her evening. And Diana never knew. Diana was home with two small children, believing that the worst had already passed, while her husband was in Annabelle Elliot's bedroom and Annabelle Elliot was on the other side of the door, having chosen Camilla over everything. Years passed. Diana died. Charles married Camilla. And within the same year, Annabelle Elliot walked straight into a duchy contract managing interior design across some of the most significant royal properties in Britain. The timing was not coincidental. The reward was not subtle. And for nearly 2 decades, the payments kept coming. Then came 2023. And Annabelle made the kind of move that tells you she either had no idea what William was feeling or she had decided it did not matter. She sat down in front of a camera for a BBC documentary celebrating Charles and Camilla's coronation year. She was still on William's payroll at the time. She was still receiving her duchy payments. And she looked directly into the lens and said about Camilla, she is his rock. She is somebody who is completely loyal. Completely loyal. Completely loyal. The woman who had pushed her sister through a bedroom door while Diana was home falling apart was sitting on national television and using the word loyal as if it belonged to Camilla. As if loyalty was something Camilla understood. As if the entire architecture of what had been done to Diana could be reframed with a warm smile and a single carefully chosen word. William saw that interview. He was still signing her checks when he saw it. And something that had already been decided became absolutely irreversible. The 2024 Duchy of Cornwall annual report came out shortly after. Annabelle Elliot's name, which had appeared in those pages for close to 20 years, was simply gone. No transition. No tribute. No gracious acknowledgement of service. Palace sources murmured that it was no reflection on her work. But the real reason had nothing to do with her work, and everyone paying attention knew it. 20 years. One word. Finished. But Annabelle's removal was only the surface layer of what William was unraveling. Because underneath Annabelle's story was a story older and darker and far more calculated than most people had ever been allowed to see. And it began not in Dorset. Not in a palace. But in the mind of a woman who had decided, years before Diana ever entered the picture, exactly how she intended to arrange the world around her. 1993. Britain. A November morning. William was 11 years old. He did not learn what his father had done from his father. He did not sit down for a careful conversation. He did not receive an explanation or an apology or even an acknowledgement. He picked up a newspaper. The same newspapers that millions of strangers across Britain were reading that morning. And he read the transcript of a secretly recorded phone call between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, a call that had been made 4 years earlier in 1989, when both of them were still married to other people. He read every word. The call had everything in it. The intimacy. The planning. The laughter. The discussion of which friends would lie for them, which homes would be used, which members of their social circle could be trusted to cover their tracks. Annabelle's home was on that list. William read that too. But beyond all of it, beyond every uncomfortable detail, there was something worse. The affair in that phone call had already been running for years. Since at least 1980. Before Diana. Before the engagement. Before the wedding. Before William was born. Before any of it. Which meant that everything Diana had been told about the past being in the past had been told to her while the past was still very much the present. 11 years old. Reading that in a newspaper. Understanding every word. That is not a child learning something difficult. That is a child watching his entire understanding of his own life rewrite itself in real time. Every memory he had of his mother's sadness, every moment he had seen her lost or withdrawn or quietly falling apart, suddenly had a name. A cause. A person. And that person...
And I think we've challenged them at every turn to be bolder, be better, be ambitious, reach for the stars. The Earthshot's job around that is to really be the glue that holds it all together. And I think when we first started talking about this as a concept, optimism was the key word we always wanted to use, because as you saw on the screen here, urgency and optimism equal action. And there was an awful lot of pessimism going around. And I think you can feel today that the positivity
was still in the picture. Now here is the detail that changes everything. The detail that most people, even those who followed the Diana story closely, either do not know or have never fully absorbed. Camilla did not simply begin an affair with Charles after he married Diana. According to Richard Parker Bowles, Andrew's own brother, Camilla had actively helped point Charles toward Diana in the first place. Not because she thought Diana was right for him. Not out of any genuine concern for Charles's future. But because she looked at Diana and saw something she could use. Richard Parker Bowles said it plainly. Camilla believed Diana was naive and easy to manage. She knew that her own history, her own reputation, the very nature of what she and Charles had already been to each other, made her completely unacceptable as a royal bride. The palace would never allow it. So she found a solution. She helped direct Charles toward a young woman who, in Camilla's calculation, would not ask too many questions. Diana was partly chosen by Camilla as a cover. Let that settle. Diana was not simply the woman Charles married before eventually choosing Camilla. She was, in a very real and documented sense, selected by Camilla because Camilla believed she could survive her. Because Camilla looked at a young, trusting, emotionally open woman and decided she would make a manageable obstacle. She was wrong about that. But the damage she caused while being wrong about it was catastrophic. From the moment Diana moved into Clarence's house after the engagement was announced in 1981, Camilla was already working. A letter appeared on Diana's bed almost immediately after she arrived. It was from Camilla. Warm. Friendly. The handwriting of a woman who wanted to establish something quickly. Such exciting news, it said. Do let's have lunch soon. Diana went to that lunch. She described it afterward in private recordings as very tricky indeed. During it, Camilla asked Diana whether she planned to hunt at Highgrove. A simple social question on the surface. But Diana understood what was really being asked. Camilla was mapping territory. She was identifying which parts of Charles's life she intended to remain in. She was establishing, before the wedding had even happened, that Diana's arrival did not mean her own departure. The years that followed were a systematic unraveling of a young woman who had entered that marriage with genuine feeling and genuine hope. Charles told Diana repeatedly that the affair was in the past. He looked at her and said it. He said it while continuing to see Camilla. He said it while Charles and Camilla were still calling each other, still making arrangements, still using Annabelle's house in Dorset as their meeting point. Diana developed severe eating disorders. She harmed herself. She spent years being told by the people around her that she was unstable, that her perceptions were unreliable, that she was too emotional to be taken seriously. She was being made to doubt her own mind. She was being told that what she could clearly see was not real. That what she could clearly feel was an overreaction. That has a name. That process has a very specific clinical name. And it was done to her deliberately. Over years. With full knowledge of the damage it was causing. William saw it. He was a child in that house and he saw it and he could not stop it and he could not explain it and he did not yet have the words for what he was watching. All he knew. Clarence's house almost immediately after the engagement was announced. It said something cheerful about exciting news and suggested they have lunch soon. Diana later described that lunch as very tricky. During it, Camilla asked specific questions about Diana's plans for the future. Questions that on the surface sounded like interest and warmth, but were actually Camilla quietly mapping the territory she intended to keep once Diana officially moved in. Diana was 20 years old. She had no idea what she was walking into. What followed over the years of that marriage was a systematic erosion of Diana's sense of reality. Charles told her repeatedly that the affair was in the past. He looked her in the eyes and said it was over, that she was imagining things, that her feelings were disproportionate and her reactions were unstable. The palace reinforced it. The institution that was supposed to protect her instead labeled her irrational, too emotional, difficult. The people around her confirmed the narrative that the problem was Diana, not the marriage, not the lies, not the man who was still seeing another woman and telling his wife she was losing her mind. That is not a personal failing. That is a pattern. And it has a name today. Diana developed an eating disorder so severe her body was being destroyed by it. She struggled in ways she later described in her own words, in secret recordings she made because she did not trust that the truth would survive without a record. She fought to stay present, to stay visible, to make people understand that what was happening to her was real, while the world around her treated her distress as performance and her pain as inconvenience. She was fighting for her life inside a palace. And two small boys were watching all of it. William was 15 years old when his mother died. 6 days after she was gone, he and Harry were placed in a funeral procession and asked to walk behind her coffin through the streets of London in front of the entire watching world. No preparation adequate to what that moment required. No buffer between a grieving teenage boy and the eyes of a global audience. Just a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a coffin, and miles of silent London street. William walked the entire route without breaking. He held himself together in a way that cost him something enormous. And everyone who watched knew it, even if they could not say it. During those years, William and Harry had names for Camilla. They called her Lady Macbeth. They called her Cruella. They called her the Wicked Witch. People over the years have treated those names as the understandable anger of grieving boys, as something childish and forgivable that time would soften. Those names were not childish. Those are the names of women who smile while they cause damage. Women who take what belongs to someone else and feel nothing about it. Women who operate behind warmth and composure while something dark moves underneath. The boys did not pick those names randomly. They picked them because they fit. Because from inside that house, from the position of two children who could see everything and say nothing and change nothing, those names were the most accurate description available to them. William remembered every single one of those years. He remembered them when he sat across from his father after Diana was gone. He remembered them during the years of careful public coexistence, of strained Christmas photographs, of official events where he stood near Camilla and said nothing because saying something would have cost him things he could not yet afford to lose. He carried it all quietly, the way you carry something very heavy for a very long time, not because you have forgiven it but because the moment to put it down has not yet arrived. And then Andrew Parker Bowles walked back into public view in February 2026. He appeared at a military memorial. He was photographed alongside Camilla's children, Tom and Laura. He was there representing Princess Anne at official events, moving through the frame of royal public life as if 50 years of history were a thing that simply did not exist. At 86 years old, still upright, still present, still smiling. And the moment people saw him, they started pulling threads. Because Andrew Parker Bowles does not just represent a former husband. He represents the entire architecture of how this story was made possible. He is the man the affair ran through. He is the foundation that the whole arrangement was built on top of. And the fact that he was still standing in public royal spaces, still connected, still welcome, meant that every dark chapter of this history was still alive and visible for anyone who wanted to look. William was looking. He had never stopped. To understand why Andrew Parker Bowles matters so much to this story, you have to understand what kind of man he was and what kind of arrangement he was living inside. Because the picture most people carry of him is the picture Camilla needed them to carry. The gracious ex-husband. The man who moved on. The proof that even the person she hurt most had found peace with everything that happened. That picture was constructed deliberately. And it served her for decades. Andrew met Camilla in the late 1960s through his younger brother, who worked for her father's business. Their relationship was on and off for years. During one of the periods when it was off, Camilla encountered Charles. Andrew, in those same years, had a brief involvement with Princess Anne, a connection that could never become a marriage because he was Catholic and Anne, as a senior royal, was bound by the requirements of the Church of England. By 1973, Andrew and Camilla were back together and their engagement was announced in the Times. The announcement appeared, reportedly, without either of them being fully informed it was coming, which effectively forced Andrew's hand. They married that same year in a wedding that society described as the event of the season. 800 guests. Princess Anne was there. Princess Margaret was there. The Queen Mother was there. From the outside it looked like the beginning of a charmed life. Underneath it, things were already rotting. Within a few years, the marriage had become something very different from what a marriage is supposed to be. Andrew was involved with other women. Not strangers. Not distant acquaintances. He was involved with women from Camilla's own circle. Women who came to their home. Women who sat at their dinner table. Women Camilla considered her friends. And he did it with a brazenness that left people around them genuinely unsettled. One of those women eventually confronted him directly. She looked at him and told him she was hurt. She said she had started to feel she was the only one of Camilla's friends he had never approached, and she wanted to know what was wrong with her. That is the level of openness with which he operated. And Camilla, in this arrangement, returned to Charles, who had never really left. Charles had begun writing to Camilla within months of the wedding and had gradually started appearing at their home on weekends. Andrew Parker Bowles became a man who was used to finding the Prince of Wales sitting in his own living room. His friends were horrified on his behalf. They said so privately. They felt he was allowing something to happen to him that should have made any man with pride walk away. But Andrew could not walk away. You did not look the future King of England in the face and ask him to leave your house. That is not how that conversation goes. There was no version of that confrontation that did not end badly for Andrew Parker Bowles. So he made a different calculation. He stayed. He accepted the situation. He became, in the language of people who watched from the inside, the man who laid down his wife for the prince. Then came the night at the Polo Club in Cirencester. Charles was there. Camilla was there. Andrew was there. There was a crowd of guests. And in front of all of them, with witnesses on every side, Charles reached his hand into the front of Camilla's dress. Openly. Without hesitation. Without any apparent concern for what anyone around him was seeing or what it meant. The room froze. People looked at each other and then looked away because there was no appropriate response to what the future King of England had just done in public. Andrew Parker Bowles was there that night. A man who had served in the military, who had competed in the Grand National, who had commanded cavalry squadrons, stood in his own social world while the heir to the throne made a statement in front of everyone present. And Andrew said nothing. He did nothing. He stood there and absorbed it. That description followed him for the rest of his life. And it was precisely that image, the image of a man who had absorbed every humiliation with visible composure and continued to show up, that Camilla leveraged for decades afterward. Because Andrew Parker Bowles was the most valuable asset in her entire rehabilitation campaign. Not her children. Not her charm. Not her relationship with Charles. Andrew. Think about what he represented to a watching public. He was the wronged party. He was the man who had the most legitimate claim to bitterness and public fury of anyone connected to this story. If any person alive had the moral standing to go on television and say that Camilla Parker Bowles had caused irreparable damage to his life and the lives of people around him, it was Andrew. The public knew that. And so every time Andrew appeared at a public event and smiled, every time he attended something connected to Charles or Camilla without visible resentment, every time he sat graciously in the background of royal occasions, he was sending a message to the world on Camilla's behalf. He attended Charles and Camilla's wedding in 2005. He attended the coronation in 2023 and watched the woman who had defined the most painful chapters of his marriage be crowned Queen of England. He was photographed with Tom and Laura in January 2026, warm and present and apparently at peace with everything. Each of those appearances was a gift. Each one said to the public, without a single word being spoken, that the man who had the most reason to hold a grudge had chosen not to. And if he could choose that, then surely the rest of the country could too. It was masterful. It was sustained across 50 years. And it worked. Until it became something else. Because Andrew Parker Bowles at 86, still appearing at military memorials in February 2026, still being photographed at official events, still visibly connected to the royal world, was no longer just a forgiving ex-husband. He was a reminder. Every appearance he made pulled the entire history back into the light. The open marriage. The covered affair. The network of people who protected it. Annabelle's bedroom door. The polo ball. The names of the houses. All of it came back every time his face appeared in a photograph. And William was paying attention to every single one of those photographs. Camilla had survived the public hatred of the 90s. She had survived the Diana years. She had outlasted the protest and the anger and the long national mourning for a woman the country adored. She had walked into Westminster Abbey for a coronation and come out wearing a crown. She had won. But she had made a mistake that none of her calculations had accounted for. She had gone after Kate. There is one thing about William that you need to understand before this final chapter makes complete sense. He is many things. He is controlled. He is patient in a way that most people underestimate. He is capable of carrying grief quietly for decades without letting it surface in any way the public can see. He learned that skill young and he has never stopped practicing it. But there is a line. And that line is Kate. People who know William, who have been close to him at various points in his life, say consistently that Kate is the one person he will not allow anyone to touch. Not with rumors. Not with calculated cruelty disguised as something else. Not with the kind of subtle, practiced undermining that Camilla had been performing her entire adult life. Kate was the single place where William's patience ended and something else began. And Camilla, who had spent 50 years reading runes and navigating power with extraordinary skill, pushed straight into that place anyway. That was her final miscalculation. It started with the story about Meghan making Kate cry. During the preparations for the royal wedding, a story was planted in the press. It said that Meghan had reduced Kate to tears during a bridesmaid's fitting. The story spread globally. It dominated international headlines for weeks. It permanently shaped how a huge portion of the public perceived Meghan. Strong, precise, and timed perfectly to land maximum damage. The story, according to Harry and Meghan both, was completely false. The opposite had happened. When William found out where the story came from, he called Charles directly. Harry recorded what William said word for word. He told his father plainly that when Camilla and her team were given an inch, they took a mile, and that they had done it to him for the last time. Then he looked his father in the face and asked him how he could allow a stranger to do what was being done to his own sons. Charles exploded. He shouted at William. He called him paranoid. He defended Camilla. He stood in the same position he had stood in since William was a small boy, and he chose her. Again. The way he had always chosen her. The way that had defined William's entire childhood and left a mark that 2 decades of careful composure had not erased. It was the same pattern. William recognized it immediately because he had been living inside it since he was old enough to understand what was happening around him. By late 2025, the tension between Camilla and Kate had become something that palace insiders could no longer contain or explain away. A source told the press directly that Camilla had become territorial and short-tempered, frustrated by the widespread perception that Kate could operate within the institution however she chose. Behind closed doors, Camilla had been openly vocal about wanting Charles to remain king for as long as possible. The reasoning was not difficult to understand. The moment William became king, Kate became queen. And Camilla's role, her funding, her status, her access, everything she had spent the better part of 50 years securing, began its quiet withdrawal. She was fighting to stay at the center. And she was using Kate as the battlefield. Then came September 2025. President Trump and Melania arrived at Windsor Castle for a state visit. The British royal family was arranged to receive them. William and Kate welcomed the Trumps and Kate fell naturally into warm conversation with Melania. The cameras were on all of it. Then Camilla arrived. On camera. In front of a visiting head of state. In front of the press corps. In front of millions of people who would later watch the footage and try to understand what they were seeing. Camilla made a sharp, dismissive gesture toward Kate. A wave. The kind of motion that tells someone they are standing in the wrong place and need to move. Kate moved. The future Queen of England stepped aside for the current one, in front of witnesses, on camera, at a state event. William saw it happen in real time. A source said afterward that Camilla's behavior that day, the pushing aside, the visible dismissal of Kate in a public setting, had upset William in a way that was testing something between them that had already been stretched extremely thin. At that same visit, when the moment came for William to greet Camilla, he gave her 2 brief kisses on the cheek and kept moving. No pause. No warmth. And crucially, no bow of the head. In royal protocol, when a senior member of the family is present, the bow is not optional. It is acknowledgement. It is the visible language of institutional respect. William did not give it. He gave her the greeting you would give a distant acquaintance at a function you both happened to attend and moved on as if she were scenery. Royal expert Christopher Anderson said what the people around William already knew. That William simply tolerates Camilla. That Camilla has always been somewhat afraid of him. That the fear predates his power, predates the duchy, predates everything. She was afraid of him when he was a grieving 15-year-old with no influence and no ability to act on anything he felt. She had always known, somewhere underneath the composure and the patience and the years of careful public performance, that William remembered everything. That he had never stopped remembering. Now he controlled everything she depended on to survive. Then came late February 2026. And the move that told everyone paying attention exactly how clearly Camilla understood what was coming. Quietly. Without a press release. Without any public announcement. Queen Camilla signed a power of attorney document and transferred ownership of Ray Mill House, her private estate in Wiltshire, into the names of her children. Tom Parker Bowles. Laura Lopez. Ray Mill House is not just a property on a balance sheet. Camilla bought it in 1996 with her divorce settlement from Andrew. She paid £850,000 for it. She has described the garden there as her best therapy. She grows vegetables there. She retreats there when the weight of royal life becomes too much. It is the one place in the world that has always been entirely and unambiguously hers. And she just moved it out of her own name. On the surface, you could read that as sensible estate planning. Camilla is 78. Charles is 77 and fighting a serious illness. Transferring property to your children under those circumstances is something financial advisors recommend all the time. But consider the timing. William had just removed Annabelle from the duchy payroll without a word of warning and without a word of explanation. He had just shown the entire palace exactly what he was capable of doing with access and arrangements that had been in place for years. He had ended a 20-year financial relationship in complete silence and let the absence speak for itself. If he could do that to Annabelle, Camilla understood precisely what he was positioned to do to her. The Ray Mill House transfer was her answer. She was moving her most personal and most valuable private asset beyond his legal reach before the day arrived when his reach would be absolute. Because that day is coming. The financial reality underneath all of this is not complicated. Camilla receives no separate personal income from the state. She is funded entirely through the sovereign grant, the payment made to the royal institution by the government, which answers directly to the monarch. When William becomes king, he controls it. Every pound of it. He has already spoken openly about his vision for a leaner monarchy. One with clearer rules about who benefits from royal proximity. One where a connection to the crown does not automatically translate into a lifetime of financial comfort. Camilla heard all of that. And then in December 2025, something happened that showed just how much the ground had shifted beneath her. She called her son Tom directly. She told him she would love for him to come to Sandringham for Christmas. That she had not spent Christmas with him in a long time. She asked him to come. Tom said no. He was not spending Christmas at Sandringham. Neither was his sister. He would do it every other year. One on, one off. He spent that particular Christmas on the sofa at his ex-wife's house instead. The Queen of England asked her son to come home for Christmas. He told her no. That is not the behavior of a family that believes the person at the center of the institution is winning. Tom and Laura Parker Bowles carry their father's name. They grew up inside this history. They understand what is coming better than most people watching from the outside. And they are already, quietly, methodically, putting distance between themselves and the machinery of royal life. They can see which way things are moving. So can everyone else who has been paying attention. Camilla played a long game and she played it brilliantly. She waited out the public hatred. She endured the Diana years with a composure that, whatever you think of her, was formidable. She navigated decades of hostility from a grieving public, from an institution that was never fully comfortable with her, from a stepson who never pretended to feel something he did not feel. She won a coronation. She won a crown. She won the title the country had been told she would never receive. She won everything. And now the man she has always been quietly afraid of is standing at the edge of the throne. He controls her funding. He controls the institution. He controls the access and the payroll and the weight of the crown that is about to transfer from his father's head to his. He has already shown the palace what he does with arrangements he considers unjust. He has already shown Camilla what silence sounds like when it comes from a position of power. He tolerates her. That is the word. Not loves. Not respects. Not values. Tolerates. And the people close to him say that even that tolerance is wearing thinner with every public dismissal of Kate, with every calculated move against the woman William has decided he will protect at any cost. The boy who walked behind his mother's coffin at 15 years old. The boy who read about his father in the newspapers at 11. The boy who had no power and no voice and no choice but to watch and remember. That boy is not a boy anymore. He is the most powerful man in Britain. He is patient. He is precise. He does not make announcements. He makes decisions. And the decisions he has been making, quietly, without fanfare, without a single public statement, are already rewriting what the next chapter of the British monarchy looks like. Annabelle Elliot found out what that looks like. Camilla is watching it happen from inside Ray Mill House, a property that is no longer technically hers, surrounded by children who are already creating space between themselves and a crown they can sense is about to become something different. And William has barely started. There is one more piece of this story that has not yet been told. A detail buried inside the history of this family that connects everything you have just heard in a way that makes the whole picture darker and more deliberate than most people have allowed themselves to believe. The connection between Andrew Parker Bowles and Princess Anne, what it meant for the institution, and what William knows about it that the public has never been told. That is the story coming next. And once you hear it, the question of whether William is simply settling old scores, or whether he is doing something far more calculated, far more long-term, and far more final than anyone has yet said out loud, is going to look very different. Do not miss it.